Chief Foreign Editor Rob Parsons keeping a close eye on this speech today from Vladimir Putin. Rob, we just heard the president talking about COVID in Russia. What else has he had to say so far?
Yeah, what he had to say about COVID was interesting. Go and get vaccinated. That was one of his big messages. Interesting because it took Russia quite a long time to make that point. They developed 3 separate vaccines, including Sputnik 5, which is the best known in the West, but have rolled it out very slowly in Russia itself, despite the fact that they're selling it abroad. This seems to be a very strong message from Putin that that's got to stop. This has got to start accelerating fast, because the fact of the matter, Russia is still struggling with COVID-19 and will continue, as he himself suggested, at least until the autumn to do so. This is an interesting speech so far, and he's been talking for an hour, almost exclusively on social problems. And that's quite new for Vladimir Putin. In the past, we've heard much more about strengthening the state. Now he's been talking about the terrible demographic problems that face Russia, the fact that the population has been shrinking for the last year and a half at least, and despite all the efforts that have been made at state level over the last couple of decades or so to reverse the demographic decline, he acknowledged that's a big problem. Something has to be done about it. And he's talking now about measures to be introduced, lots of money to be spent on improving healthcare, on helping single mothers, providing more money for single mothers, for incentives for women to get pregnant, to have more children, all those sort of things. It's going to cost money. Russia's known about these problems in the past. One of the reasons that COVID-19 has been so devastating in Russia is because the level of healthcare, although widespread in general, is at a pretty low level. This speech seems to be recognizing that at last. Behind that lies a question of how you go about dividing the pie in Russia. Because up until now, massive amounts have been spent on the military, on defense. So is this, he didn't spell this out, but the question that arises is this the moment where Russia starts to change the balance of its spending away from the military and towards healthcare, social care, education, another big issue that he spoke about, and the environment?
Rob, the story behind the story, of course, here are the protests that are being planned for today to back Alexei Navalny, Putin's biggest critic. Is that having any kind of effect at all on what the president is saying today?
Zero. He hasn't said a single word about it. Obviously, it's in the back of his mind because there's no doubt that the timing of these demonstrations, if they take place across Russia, is meant to coincide with President Putin's speech and to take away some of the plus marks that he would hope to have got from it. What we know at the moment is, in terms of how the state is reacting, is that key people associated with Navalny have been arrested already. Lyubov Sobol, for instance, one of his key supporters, arrested as she was in a taxi in Moscow. She was stopped by numerous police, taken out of the taxi, detained. And also Kira Yarmysh, who's Navalny's press spokesman, also arrested this morning in Moscow. So the authorities quite clearly going out of their way to make sure that this will be a non-event. It's not helping Navalny and his supporters either that the weather is pretty awful in Russia today, or at least in Moscow.
Rob, thanks for that. France 24's Rob Parsons.